Happy New Year to everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Classic Gamer 74. I am your host, Anthony Gamer, and a big hello to all my new subscribers. Welcome to the Classic Gamer 74 family. I'm happy to have you, and I'm also happy to have all my long-term subscribers. Thank you again for tuning in. And in today's episode, we're going to discuss even more rare and valuable games for the NES. The NES was released in North America in 1985, and it was not officially discontinued until 1995. In 1991, the Super Nintendo was released here in North America, and was released a year earlier in Japan as the Super Famicom. Even after the Super Nintendo was released in 1990/1991, game companies would continue to release games for the NES. Now, these games would be called late releases, and several of them have made it to this list, the previous ones and the ones to come. Also, aside from those, we also have the ones that got limited releases, and of course those unlicensed games that came out as well. So, like before, the games that are going to be on today's list are going to be, their prices are going to be based on loose prices. As, of course, many of you know that are collectors out there, that a lot of things are valuable if they're still in the package. Also, keep in mind that this video is being recorded in January of 2024, so prices are subject to change. Also, I'm not going to talk about games that were not commercially available, so none of those championship cartridges and no weird variations like the one with 5 screws or something like that. So, with all that said, let's get into the games. Now, the first one I want to mention today is one that I didn't mention in a previous episode, and that is the Tengen version of Tetris that was released in 1988. Now, there was a big lawsuit that happened that caused this game to be pulled from shelves and making it kind of rare and valuable. There's a long story behind that lawsuit, which Nintendo did actually win. I'm really surprised Tengen wasn't involved in more lawsuits because of all the unlicensed games that they did release. Now, the Tengen version is different than the NES version. It has more varieties. You have 2-player, you have versus computer, you have co-op with computer, all kinds of cool stuff that the NES release doesn't have. If you would like to add the Tengen version of Tetris to your library, it's going to be kind of hard to do, honestly. Even though this game is not as valuable as some of the games on this list, it's becoming harder and harder to find, especially since they were recalled and probably most of them destroyed. If you'd like to add it to your collection, it will run you right around $200. During the life of Nintendo, it was not uncommon to make movie tie-in games. Whether the movies really translated to a video game or not was besides the point. And here we have Wayne's World, that movie about those two characters, Wayne and Garth. Great movie. I don't really think it holds up that well in today's world, but I haven't seen it in like almost 30 years. Anyway, here is that movie tie-in. It's a typical NES platformer, nothing special. The Super Nintendo game I enjoyed much better myself, even though it's not really a lot to talk about. If you'd like to add this game to your collection, it will run you right around $200. Next up, we have Secret Scout from 1991 by Color Dreams, one of those really awesome unlicensed games. In this game, you are a scout separated from your troops by unexplainable events. You are trying to find your way back to civilization. Just when you think you're going to be saved, the rescuing team turns out to be part of Dr. Demise's organization. Oh boy. Yeah, not a great game by any stretch of the imagination, even by unlicensed standards. If you'd like to add this one to your collection, it will cost you right around $220. In 1990, Capcom released DuckTales, a tie-in to that very popular cartoon series that a lot of us watched back in those days and still hold in high regard, myself included. And 3 years later, they made the sequel, DuckTales 2. Also a late release. This was released, like I said, in 1993. And in this platformer game, Uncle Scrooge, with the aid of Huey, Dewey, and Louie and Launchpad McQuack, is again trying to find the world's treasures. Unlike the original one, which is pretty readily available and not too expensive, its sequel is a little on the expensive side. If you would like to add this game to your collection, it will cost you right around $225. In the 1990s, Hanna-Barbera cartoons would have a sort of renaissance. Many of those classic cartoons would get made-for-TV movies, live-action movies, and a slew of games. And the Jetsons were no exception. In 1992, we had Jetsons Cogwell's Caper released. This platformer game stars the titular George Jetson as he is on a quest to save his company and ultimately the worlds, forget the Jetsons. Pretty cool platformer game. Nothing extremely special, but if you're a fan, you're going to love it. What you're probably not going to love is the price. If you'd like to get this game, it's going to cost you right around $233. Final Fight, the arcade game, has to be one of my all-time favorite beat-em-up games. I've discussed it in a couple different episodes. I can't tell you how many quarters I paid to play that game over the years. As a kid, I just really loved that game. I love the characters, the storyline. I like being Mayor Mike Hager, and it's a great game. Some of the sequels haven't been as good. Some of them have been downright lousy, but this one's okay. And this is Mighty Final Fight. This was released by Capcom in 1993, making it a kind of a late release. The same story's about the same as the Mad Gear Gang has spread crime throughout Metro City. They kidnapped Mayor Mike's daughter Jessica, and now he and Guy and Cody are out to take care of that bad gang. Like I said, not as great as the arcade game, but not bad for an 8-bit game, especially, keeping the story going, I guess. If you'd like to grab this game for your collection, it will cost you right around $250. Make your selection. Yeah, you knew this was coming. The least said about this game, the better. It's just bad. Angry Video Game Nerd was not exaggerating. This is a bad game, and unless you are a collector, I would not recommend it at all. Now, the Sega Genesis version, that's a different story. That one is really awesome. This one is really awful. And ordinarily, I don't like to make videos where I just talk about bad games. We try to stress the positive here, but there is nothing really positive I can say about this, other than the cart does kind of look kind of cool, and it should for its price. So if you'd like to add this stinker to your collection, it will cost you right around $265. Make your selection. Okay, so we go from a really bad game to a really good game. Just like with DuckTales, 1990s Chippendales Rescue Rangers was a big success, a great game, held in very high regard, and once again, they tried to catch lightning in a bottle 3 years later with Rescue Rangers 2. And they pulled it off. This is actually a pretty cool game. Now, I wasn't a big fan of the cartoon growing up. 93 was a busy year for me. That's when I graduated high school and started college. And really, I just didn't really care for any of those Disney afternoon cartoons. But the game itself is a pretty cool platformer that I think you will really enjoy. The price, however, that's another story. If you'd like to add this game to your collection, it will cost you $280. Next up, we have another Hanna-Barbera game, and that is Wacky Races. This game, I thought it would actually be a racing game, but it's actually a platformer game from what I've seen of it, and not really a good one either. This was released in 1991 by Atlas. I've never heard of that company. Maybe some of you have. It's actually, like I said, a platformer game. You take on the role of Muttley in this. It's not a great game by any stretch of the imagination. But for you collectors, it probably is one you might want to get a hold of. If you would like to get a hold of it, it's going to cost you a little bit. Currently, a loose cart will run you right around $300. And once again, we go from a really bad game to a pretty cool game. This is 1991's Snow Brothers. This was released by Capcom. It's not a bad game. In this, it's kind of a fixed screen platformer game where you have to defeat your enemies by throwing snow at them and stunning them, and then roll into giant snowballs and kick them and stuff. It's actually kind of a Bobble ripoff in a lot of ways. So much so that I'm surprised they didn't get sued, honestly. But besides that fact, it's not a bad game, actually. Especially if you really enjoy Bobble, you'll really like this one. At least I think so. If you'd like to get a hold of this, though, it's going to cost you a little bit. It currently sits at right around $300. Next up, we have Gun Neck. Now, the backstory of this game, or the story behind this game, is actually a lot more interesting than the game itself, which is just a space shooter. It's like inanimate objects are coming to life and are trying to attack. The Galactic Commander is the only one who can handle this. It's hard to believe this game actually is like I said. Yeah, it's just basically a space shooter with a weird backstory behind it. It's nothing extremely special. It's kind of fun, but yet not very original. It was released in 1990 by a company called Compile. The pile part is kind of right, but I don't want to sound too harsh. And if you'd like to add this game to your collection, it will cost you $323. Alright, next up we have Dragon Fighter. This was released in 1990 by a company called Sawfell. Anyway, it's... The best way I can describe this game is it's... Now, for those of you that really like Demon Sword, this is a much slower version of Demon Sword. You have draconian characters you're fighting, and they're throwing snowballs at you. Then there's these evil snowballs coming to get you. Okay. Anyway, if you would like to add this game to your collection, it will cost you right around $324. Next up, we have another multi-cart, and this is Caltron 6-in-1. Yeah, another, I believe, it is an unlicensed game. That's not a shock there. It's a little bit better than Action 52. Actually, it's a lot better than Action 52, but thank goodness there's only 6 games on here. They're not great. They're kind of bad, but, they're not that bad. So, if you'd like to get a hold of this game, it will cost, this multi-cart with 6 different games in it, it will cost you $331. Alright, and next up we have another unlicensed title, and this is Menace Beach. This was released in 1990 by Color Dreams. Alright, your girlfriend has been kidnapped by a guy named Demon Dan, and you are set out to go rescue her. Yeah. Boy, there's some real stinkers on here, I tell you. It is that bad, definitely. You can tell it's an unlicensed game, too. If you'd like to add this one to your collection, it will currently cost you around $354. And our next game is one that really has gotten a lot of attention, and for good reason. This is Cowboy Kid, and this was released in 1991 by a company called Romstar. You take on the role of a young gunslinger, and you're traveling through the land fighting villains and playing mini-games. There's kind of an RPG element to the game. It's actually not half bad, and honestly, I'm going to do a deeper dive into this a little bit later on. Other game channels have reviewed this game and have loved it. It is quite a good game and definitely a lost classic. However, it's going to cost you a little bit if you would like to get a hold of it. Currently, right now, a loose cart will cost you $364. Next up, we have Bobble Part 2. It's pretty much the same as Bobble 1 for the most part. I believe this was an exclusive just for consoles. if I'm not mistaken. If I am, please let me know. I did review the Bobble games in a previous episode. This one was released in 1993 by Taito. A new breed of heroes, Cubby and Rubby, descendants of the famous Bubby, must battle the Skull Brothers and their army of fiends to rescue a friend in danger. Fortunately, our dinosaur heroes can blow bubbles that will destroy their foes. They will rain fire, floods, and tornado. Yeah. If you'd like to get a hold of this game, it will currently cost you $378. Alright, now we have a horizontal space shooter. This is Moon Ranger. According to the story, the moon was taken over by some evil aliens, and you have to go stop them. Yeah. This game was released in 1990. It's an unlicensed game by a company called Bunch Games. If you'd like to add this game to your collection, it will cost you $414. Next up, we have a game that's actually pretty cool. It's called Kid Clown in Nightmare's World. This was released in 1992 by a company called Kemco. Not familiar with them. This one is actually really good. I really enjoyed this game, and I'm going to be doing a deeper dive into it too. Now, the description is this. Hi kids, I'm Kid Clown, and you know what? It looks like that mean old magician, the Nightmare. Get it? Nightmare? Has clown-napped my funny family, so I'm going to play a joke on the dude. But I really need your help, because he lives in a wild clown dominion with a bunch of real goons, and all I have is some magic balloons, so come on and give me a hand. I just knows you can't wait to get started. Okay, anyway, besides that, it's actually a pretty cool game and obviously a lost classic. I remember hearing about it somewhere back in the day. I don't know if it was in Nintendo Power Magazine or if I saw it in the store, but I definitely heard about it before now. I just didn't know the game was as valuable as it is. If you'd like to get a hold of it, it will currently cost you around $463. Alright, next up we have Zombie Nation. This is a bizarre game that was released in 1990 by a company called Meldak. You are the zombie head, and you are going around fighting against an evil guy named Darkseid. Wow, I don't know what to say. Honestly, I just don't. If you'd like to add this game to your collection, it will cost you $482. And our final game for today is Bonk's Adventure. Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe that Hudson Soft would actually release a game starring the mascot for the TurboGrafx-16, but they did in 1993. And for those of you that aren't familiar with this game, I'll summarize it. That cave boy with the head of stone is back. Join Bonk on his all-new adventure as he travels through the savage dinosaur land in search of the beautiful Moon Princess. His old enemy, the slimy King Drool, has kidnapped her. Now Bonk has to use his head, literally, to save the princess and the kingdom. Alright, so if you enjoyed the game on the TurboGrafx-16, you're going to enjoy this as well. I was just kind of surprised about it, but that it would, they would release... And it got the Nintendo seal of approval, so this actually was a licensed game. I'm really surprised some lawsuit didn't pop up over this, so maybe it did. I'll have to do some research. Anyway, if you'd like to add Bonk's Adventure to your Nintendo collection, I know it's kind of strange saying that, it will cost you quite a bit. Currently, this game is worth right around $680. In our next episode, we will wrap up this series with the most rare and valuable NES games. Well, that brings this episode of Classic Gamer 74 to a close. I really hope you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed presenting it to you. If you did, let me know by giving me a big thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when I upload any new videos. Connect with me on all my social media platforms and check out my Patreon page. I've got some really cool stuff up there, including a new series that's exclusive to there where I am playing some cool matches on WWE 2K23. Currently, I am doing a series of matches in Japan versus Korea, so please check that out and be generous and help me out on Patreon. The link is in the description below. Well, until next time, this has been Anthony Gamer. Thank you for stopping by, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, be strong, be safe, be happy, be healthy, and above all, take care of each other, be kind to each other, and stop hate of all kinds. See you soon. Bye for now.